Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We're stepping back into the late 1950s and early 1960s, the height of the Cold War. The world is a chessboard, and the pieces are not soldiers, but world leaders, diplomats, and high society influencers. We are in the wood-paneled offices of Langley and the high-end hotels of Washington. This was the era of the Manchurian Candidate fears, but the reality was far more grounded in social science. The agency realized that to win the Cold War, they didn't just need to know where the missiles were. They needed to know the psychological breaking points of the men who pushed the buttons. They sought to turn the soft science of psychology into a hard tool of statecraft. This was the quest for the ultimate behavioral blueprint. This was MKESQUIRE. How did this project get its name? The designation MKESQUIRE follows the cryptonym protocols of the technical services staff. The MK prefix denotes projects under the umbrella of behavioral research and chemical influence. The suffix esquire was chosen as a reference to the social status of its targets. In traditional English law, an esquire is a title of dignity just below a knight, often used to refer to members of the gentry or professional classes. Since the project focused on high-level social and political targets, the gentry of the global political scene, the name signified the agency's intent to map the minds of the ruling class. MKESQUIRE was the agency's attempt to quantify the human soul for the sake of national security. MKESQUIRE was a CIA research project designed to study the behavioral traits and psychological profiles of high-level political figures and social influencers. A quote from a declassified 1961 progress report: "The goal is the development of a predictive matrix for human behavior in high-stress political environments." End quote. Records show that MKESQUIRE funded research into indirect assessment, the art of profiling a target without ever meeting them in person. Documentation confirms that the project utilized linguistic analysis of public speeches to detect early signs of mental instability or cognitive decline in foreign leaders. The program sought to identify vulnerability markers such as ego sensitivity, sexual orientation, or hidden addictions that could be used for recruitment or neutralization. A quote from a declassified internal memo on target selection: "Every man has a price, but for the elite, that price is rarely money. It is usually a matter of self-image." End quote. MKESQUIRE involved the study of group dynamics within foreign cabinets to predict how a government would react to a sudden crisis. Logs indicate that the project utilized social network analysis, decades before the internet, to map the connections between high society figures in Paris and London. Technical files revealed that the program experimented with psychological stress evaluators to analyze the voices of world leaders during televised broadcast. Records prove that MKESQUIRE monitored the reading habits and personal libraries of targets to understand their ideological leanings. The project utilized clinical psychologists who were unaware they were working for the agency to provide blind assessments of political biographies. Documentation confirms that the operation utilized handwriting analysis as a secondary tool for personality assessment, a common practice in the 1960s. Memos reveal that the CIA used front consultancies to interview the former classmates and childhood friends of rising political stars. The program tracked the health records of foreign dignitaries seeking to predict political shifts based on the physical decline of aging leaders. Records show that the project utilized content analysis of a target's personal correspondence to identify shifts in their emotional stability over time. The program employed cultural anthropologists to ensure that the psychological profiles were adjusted for local social norms. Documentation shows that the agency utilized role-playing scenarios where CIA officers would attempt to think like the target to find the flaws in their logic. Internal ledgers confirm that MKESQUIRE funded university studies on the psychology of dictators. The operation utilized biographical reconstruction to create 360-degree views of a subject's life from infancy to the present day. Records indicate that the CIA used briefing profiles for U.S. presidents that were based directly on the data gathered by MKESQUIRE. The program utilized micro-expression analysis in its later stages, looking for leakage of true emotions during diplomatic negotiations. Project records indicate that researchers studied the effects of isolation on high-functioning leaders to determine how they might behave under house arrest scenarios. The agency established a psychological assessment center specifically to process the data gathered from domestic and international socialites. Documents show the use of third-party intermediaries, such as journalists and academics, to subtly ask specific questions to targets during public forums. Internal memos reveal that MKESQUIRE utilized the results of the adjective checklist to categorize world leaders into specific personality quadrants. Records confirm the agency studied the relationship between a target's physical environment, their office layout and decor, and their level of cognitive rigidity. Documentation shows that the project funded the creation of simulated cabinets to test how different personality types would interact during a nuclear standoff. The program tracked the financial vulnerabilities of targets, specifically focusing on gambling debts and offshore accounts that indicated a lack of impulse control. Logs indicate that MKESQUIRE researchers analyzed the speech-to-pause ratio of leaders to determine levels of deception during international summits. Declassified budgets reveal that MKESQUIRE paid for the development of personality inventory test, specifically designed to identify potential defectors within the Soviet diplomatic corps. Internal logs confirm that the agency monitored the prescription drug usage of target elites to determine if their decision-making was being altered by medication. Memos describe the use of involuntary observation rooms hidden behind two-way mirrors in safe houses to study the body language of targets in social settings. The project employed experts in kinesics, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, KINESICS, to interpret the nonverbal cues of leaders during high-stakes Cold War summits. Documentation shows the agency analyzed the sleep cycles of targets, theorizing that sleep deprivation during marathons of negotiation could be used to induce psychological malleability. Records indicate that the project funded gossip analytics, where agency-linked journalists were paid to record the rumors circulating in the elite social clubs of Rome. Data reveals that researchers studied the birth order of world leaders to create a statistical model of their risk-taking tendencies. Internal files confirm that the agency used hypnotic regression on cooperative assets to recover details about the childhood traumas of rival foreign officials. In the declassified folders of MKESQUIRE, the most impenetrable silence is found in the section titled Series 9 Domestic Social Matrix. According to researchers at the National Security Archive, this specific volume holds the highest density of black ink in the entire behavioral collection. Whispers from former staffers suggest a scandalous reality behind the black ink. The agency was allegedly shadow profiling American politicians. The story goes that they weren't just looking at the Soviets, they were mapping the vulnerabilities of U.S. senators and the Georgetown social circuit. Some believe those redactions hide the names of prominent hostesses who served as unpaid informants, turning cocktail parties into data mines for the powerful. In the dustier corners of the intelligence community, a belief lingers that the redactions cover the profiling of the British royal family. The theory posits that MKESQUIRE was used to weigh which royals were Team America versus those who favored European sovereignty. If the redactions ever cleared, we might find a secret succession matrix used to predict the future of the crown. Imagine a world where your favorite movie star is actually a calibrated tool of intelligence. There is a persistent rumor that the redacted files contain data on major Hollywood icons and media moguls. Speculators think the agency mapped the minds of A-list celebrities to see who could best push specific narratives to the public. Those black boxes might just be the source code for a celebrity intelligence network. There is a growing theory among digital archaeologists that the most heavily redacted pages of the Series 9 files contain the first drafts of Project Voter Key. Some believe the agency discovered that by manipulating the psychological pain points of a target leader's constituency, they could force a change in the leader's behavior. The theory is that the black ink hides evidence that the CIA developed a method to use psychological stress induction on the American public to indirectly steer the decisions of the president. Was MKESQUIRE a success? Tactically, it was a methodological triumph. It successfully moved the agency away from gut feelings to a data-driven approach to human intelligence. Strategically, it was a quiet force multiplier. The project was a success in that it allowed U.S. diplomats to enter negotiations with a cheat sheet for the opponent's psyche. The success of MKESQUIRE is found in the averted crisis. It successfully predicted the irrational behavior of several Middle Eastern leaders, allowing the State Department to pivot before conflict erupted. The agency successfully built the human intelligence foundation that still exists today. However, the project's success was also its ethical stain, the reality that it treated human beings as mere data points to be manipulated. It successfully proved that personality is policy. The mission was a total success in creating the first psychological dossiers that are now standard across the intelligence community. Ultimately, it was a success because it gave the U.S. a cognitive edge during the tensest moments of the Cold War. The program successfully showed that the mind could be mapped if you had enough data. It successfully integrated social science with espionage. The success of MKESQUIRE is measured in the successful recruitment of high-level assets who didn't even know they were being played. It was an undeniable success in identifying the specific ego drivers that led to the defection of several high-ranking Soviet officials. The program successfully created a behavioral dictionary that translated foreign actions into predictable patterns. It was a categorical success in professionalizing the art of the deal for the intelligence world. Beyond the Cold War, the operation was a success because it proved that behavioral metrics could predict regime stability more accurately than economic data alone. It successfully laid the groundwork for modern psychological operations by identifying how to break a leader's public image without firing a single shot. This project remains a success in the eyes of the agency because it turned the unpredictable nature of human power into a quantifiable risk assessment model. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, the architect of influence resulted in breakthroughs that define modern politics and marketing, such as remote psychological profiling. The techniques developed to study foreign leaders are now used by political campaigns to micro-target voters based on their personality traits. Linguistic threat assessment. The automated analysis of speech patterns is the ancestor of modern software used to detect insider threats in corporate environments. Influence mapping. The social network mapping done by MKESQUIRE is the foundational logic behind modern social media algorithms that track how ideas spread through elite circles. And narrative control heuristics. The study of how influencers shape public opinion led directly to the modern field of public diplomacy and strategic communication used by governments worldwide. MKESQUIRE reminds us that the most important terrain in any war is the 6 inches between a leader's ears. The architect of influence proved that the agency could build a bridge into the most private thoughts of the most powerful people on earth. The dossiers are now digital and the algorithms are faster, but the fundamental goal remains the same: to understand the man, to control the moment. We are still living in the world shaped by these profiles, in the way our leaders speak to us and the way our enemies are managed behind the scenes. The story of MKESQUIRE is a story of the human mind as the ultimate frontier of national security. The architect is still at work, drafting the blueprints for a future where behavior is never accidental. We must remember that while the agency seeks to predict the king's next move, the heart of the individual remains the one variable they can never fully own. Through MKESQUIRE, the government achieved a understanding of the mechanics of ambition. The profile is complete, and the chess match continues. We are the subjects of a world where influence is the only currency that truly matters. Our very perceptions are often the result of a profile written decades ago in a windowless room. The architect is not just building influence, they are building the reality we navigate every day. To resist the blueprint, one must first recognize that it exists. The final line of defense is a mind that refuses to be predictable. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and remember, someone out there knows exactly what makes you tick. Join us next time as we examine Jawbreaker. In the rugged mountains of the Hindu Kush, the agency sent its finest to pave the way for a nation's revenge. We'll uncover the facts behind Jawbreaker, the first CIA team deployed to Afghanistan in 2001 to coordinate with the Northern Alliance. It was a game of unconventional warfare, tribal diplomacy, and the hunt for the world's most wanted man. Join us next time for The Tip of the Spear. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.